Hi, I'm Jackie, and I'm the Emerging Tech Specialist with the Muskegon Area District Library. Thank you for joining us today for the Introduction to Microsoft Word Part 1. We've broken this up into a couple different pieces for you just to make it a little bit easier to get through. We're happy to see you, and let's get started. This is really going to be an introductory course for people who don't have a lot of experience with Microsoft Word. We're going to start right at the beginning, and we're going to cover all the basics that you need to know. So hopefully by the end of this class, you should be well on your way to having a complete resume. The version of Word that I'm working with is Word 2019. It's going to be pretty similar to Word 2016 and Office 365 Word. Word 2013 is going to look a little bit different, but it's going to have most of the same tools. If you want to follow along with us, even if you have Word 2013, totally fine. Just feel free to ask questions if you find that I'm talking about something that looks different from what you have. So the first thing we have to do is we have to find and open Microsoft Word. The easiest way to go about doing that is to navigate down to the bottom of your screen, find your search bar along the bottom there, click in it, and just type in Word. Type in Word. What should come up is the screen right here. You should see the app Word. We're going to click on that. It's going to open up this screen right here. This is your start desktop for Microsoft Word. You might not be seeing a recent panel right here. This is where you would see recent documents that you have been working on in Microsoft Word. Obviously, if you haven't been working in Word, you aren't going to have any recent documents. But everyone should be seeing this screen on the right half. This is where you have your blank document, which is going to be what we use to get started. It's also where you're going to find all of the pre-formatted Word templates. Now, Word actually stores a lot of these online. You can download them, so they won't open immediately. It will take a second to download, but it does have some really great themes. If you just need to get something done really quickly here, you can open up one of these pre-formatted ones, and you can replace images with your own images. You can type your own documentation in there, put your name in, your experience. You can fill in all of those customization options. It's not going to be 100% your original document. Some of this stuff is hard to move around. But if you see a pre-formatted template that looks like it's going to accomplish what you want, and you just need something really quick, this is something nice to keep in mind. But for the most part, we are going to start right at the beginning. We are going to open ourselves a blank document. So if you move your cursor over that blank document, click once, and we're going to open up our document here. So this is what it actually looks like in Microsoft Word when you are working on your own document. Up at the top here, you're going to see this line of text and tabs. This is called your menu ribbon. These are all different menus, and they each contain what are called command groups. So right underneath there, you'll notice we have a clipboard group, a font group, a paragraph group. These are tools broken into groups that have specific commands. So for example, right now we're in the Home menu ribbon. We are going to go to the Font command group, and you can see all of these tools in here give us options to control our font. If you move your mouse and just hover over one for a second, don't click, just hover, you'll notice you'll get a little pop-up that gives you a little bit more details about the control option for that tool. So for example, right now I am hovering over bold. If I click on that and then start typing, it will make my text bold. So if you ever have any questions about what exactly a tool does, we'll move down here. This is a strike through tool. It crosses something out by drawing a line through it. Hover over it. It'll give you a little bit more of a description about that tool. Hopefully it'll clear up any questions you have about it. Home is going to be our most common menu ribbon. So now if I were to click on my insert menu ribbon, you'll notice all of these command groups change. So if you ever find that you are not in the same place that we are throughout any of these videos, double check and make sure that we are in the same menu ribbon up here. We're going to return to Home, It's a good place to be. This is our actual document body. So when we start to type, when we start to add photos, this is where they're going to show up. You'll notice that we don't go all the way to the edges of our document. That is because the printer does need a space for error. It can't go all the way to the edges of the paper. So those are called our margins, this little black space up here on our rulers. That's just blank space for our printer. And we'll go over how to format our margins a little bit later as well. Down here at the bottom, we have a couple more tools. We've got page 1 of 1. So we only have one page and we are on the first one. It is possible to add more pages, but we're not going to worry about that right now. 0 words. So this is a word count of how many words we have in our document right now. Obviously, we haven't typed anything yet. There's nothing going on. These are a couple different ways to view your document. The most common one is going to be the print layout, which is what we have now. You can feel free to click on the other ones if you'd like to see what they look like, but we're going to return to the print layout just so we all have the same screen. On the far right hand side here, we have a zoom menu. So if you need to get a little bit closer, you can click on that little plus side. That little icon right there will help us zoom in a little bit. If you want to make it a little bit smaller, see more of your page, you can hit the minus icon on the left and you can zoom out a little bit. I recommend keeping it somewhere around 100%. That just helps us maintain an idea of what our document is going to look like if we ever need to print it. Sometimes if you get zoomed in a little bit too much, you're going to think something is going to have a lot of really fine detail. You zoom out and realize, it's smaller than a postage stamp. There's not really a lot you can see there. If you're too zoomed out, you might think, oh, that's not that big. Nobody's really going to notice it. And then when you print it, it's much bigger than you thought. You can see every little thing in there. So around 100% just keeps you in approximately the right area for what your document's going to look like when you print it out. Okay, so now that we've got a rundown of where a lot of our basic tools are, we're going to go back up to the top and we're going to talk about the different options in our menu ribbon. There are a lot of choices up here, but the most popular ones are going to be File, Home, Insert, and Layout. And those are going to be the ones we really start by talking about here. Home is going to be the most popular one. It has a lot of the most common tools in it. So we'll come back to that one quite frequently, but for now we're going to start on the left-hand side. We're going to click on File, and you'll notice the first big thing here that happens, we see a completely different screen. This is our file menu, and file is unique in that it alters our entire document instead of just a feature of our document. For example, if we were to change our text in our home menu, it's only going to change the words on the page. File is going to alter the whole thing. So whatever changes we make here, it's going to affect everybody. The most important thing here, however, our Save As tool. We're going to do that right now, actually, before we get any further. And this is a good place to be right off the bat to save your document. That way, if anything were to happen later on, heaven forbid your computer crash, you've got a copy of at least your rough draft saved. It might not have your most recent additions to it, but better something than nothing. So if you click on Save As, it's going to give you some options for places to save it. Recent, obviously, if you haven't used Word recently, you aren't going to have any recent places. I have quite a few. OneDrive is Microsoft's version of the cloud. This PC is your actual computer. You can add a place if there's some place that you frequently like to save it. We're just going to go right down to the bottom and we're going to click on Browse though. And that's going to open up a file manager window for us so that we can go in and pick the specific place we want to save it. So if you click on Browse, you're going to see a menu pop up. This is your file extension manager. It's going to have all of your options for you. So before we choose where we want to save it, by default, Windows recommends saving it in Documents, which is a great place to save it because it is a document. If you're on a personal computer, if you're on a public computer, I actually would recommend saving it somewhere easy to access. For example, if you're on one of the computers at the Muskegon Area District Library, I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you save it on the desktop. And that's just because it's going to be easy to find when you go to print it off or when you need to move it to a flash drive or email it to yourself. The desktop is really easy to get to. It also acts as kind of a visual reminder when you're getting ready to log off of that computer that you do have a document on it. Now, the Muskegon Area District Library computers, when you log off, they do reboot fully, clearing off all of your data, so you can't save it to the desktop long term. Some computers you can. That is something you always want to check when you use a public computer. Will your document be saved? But if you're on a personal computer, a perfectly fine place to save it is under Documents. We're going to go ahead and click on Documents for me, and I have a folder that is for this class already. So I'm going to navigate down to the bottom of the screen here. You have the option to name your document. I'm just going to go ahead and call it the test document. Uh, Underneath that, save as type. So with the Save As tab, what we're telling Windows is where we want our document saved, what we want our document called, and what kind of document it is. Now by default, we're in Word. It wants to save it as a Word document, and that is perfect. That's exactly what we want it to save as today. If you click on where it says Word document, though, you can get a look at all of your different options. So there are a lot of different options there. We're not going to worry about any of those today, though. As long as you have Word document as your file type, that's perfect. So as soon as you're happy with your file name, your file location, and their save type as a Word document, go ahead and hit save. And what you'll notice happens is we are taken back to the last tab we were just in, which would be Home. And up at the very top of the screen, you'll notice that it now says Test, the name of your document, and it is a Word document still. That hasn't changed. Now we're going to go back to File. We're going to finish looking around here. You'll notice that what we did, we went to Save As, because Save As gives us the option to tell the computer, I want it to be called this, I want it to be saved here, I want it to be this type of file. From now on, as long as we don't want to change any of that information, we can just go to Save. And what that does is it tells the computer, hey, remember all that stuff I just told you as far as where and what and who this file is? Just pull that all up. I'm not going to tell you again. So if you click Save, it's going to save any changes that we made to the places we previously told it to save. Now, if you are halfway through your document and you're not quite sure it's how you want to go, you can save as and create a new file, but for the most part, you're going to go to Save As the first time you want to save your document, so you can put in all of the information about it, and then from then on, you're just going to go right to Save. Now, a lot of the other tools here are pretty self-explanatory. New is going to create a new document. Open is going to create a document that already exists. Obviously, if this is your first time in Word, you might not have a lot of documents to open. We talked about our Save and our Save As. Save as Adobe PDF. So Windows does have the option to create an Adobe PDF. And what that does is it will just open up a save box where instead of saving as a Word document, it's going to save it as a PDF. Why would you want to save it as a PDF? PDF is a document file type that is accessible across many devices. So you can open it if you have a laptop, you can open it if you have a Windows desktop, you can open it if you have a Mac desktop, you can open it if you have an Apple or an Android phone. There's lots more options, whereas in order to open a Word document, you have to have Word. So if you are working on writing your resume, it's always best to save your final product Word document and then create a secondary file as an Adobe PDF so that people can read your resume regardless of what kind of a device they have on their end. But for now, we're going to keep working on it as a Word document. Print. If you click on Print, it will open up the print window here. It tells you This is the printer you're printing to, how many copies. We're not going to be worried about that right now. Obviously, a lot of us don't have printers at home, so it's not something you can do here. Share, we're not going to worry about. Export is another way to get a PDF out. Closes down the whole program. So really, from your file menu, the ones that we're going to be using a lot today are going to be the save as. That's going to be what we really worry about today. But the other tools, pretty self-explanatory. Print is going to print. New, open, those are going to be your big ones. If you ever find you're in one of these files, for example, print, and you don't want to be, all you have to do to get back to your document is just click up here on this little back arrow in the upper left-hand corner. So if we click on that, there we are back at our document. It is saved as our test. And now we are ready to get going into our actual tools here. Okay, so home has our most common tools in it. Probably 75% of the time you want a tool, it's going to be in the home menu. Especially when you're writing a resume, it's very text heavy. This is where you should look. So what we're going to do here, we are going to start off by doing some typing. So first things first, you're going to type your name. And when you've typed your name, what you do on your keyboard to move down to the next line is hit enter. And then that should start the next line. Go ahead and put in an address. And I hit enter again to move down to that next line. Okay, so we've got essentially a mailing address here. Okay, so we've got a lot of space here. And we're going to talk about that from our home menu. What we're going to do to change pre-typed text, if you click and hold at the very last space, so our I-beam is flashing right there, click and hold, and then we're going to drag all the way up to the top. So we should have, all of this should be highlighted gray now for us. That means it's selected, and any changes that we decide to make to our document is going to apply only to the highlighted text. We are first of all going to come up here and say in our font menu, Windows by default opens Calibri. It's okay. Personally, I prefer Arial. So if you click on this little down arrow here, it will show you all of these options, and there's tons. Arial is pretty standard. Another standard one is Times New Roman. I would recommend sticking to those unless you're really applying for a more creative job. They just tend to be a little bit more acceptable. I will click on Arial. I prefer that one personally. Next to that, there's a number. Right now it says 11. If you click on that, it gives you standard font sizes. 12 is pretty much the standard minimum. I wouldn't do anything smaller than 12. If you want to go a little bit bigger to fill it up later, that's acceptable too. But for now, 12 is a good place to start with. That should be good enough to getting going. We've still got those spaces though. Not a super big fan of that. We're going to move over to our paragraph command group to make changes there. Right above paragraph, you should notice there's this little tool with the up arrow and the down arrow. If you hover over it, it tells you that it's the line and paragraph spacing. There is a little down arrow right next to it, which tells us that there's more tools underneath it. If we click on that little down arrow, it tells us, oh, well here, you can pick the spacing. So you can see, we can go in and tell it, well, I only want single spacing. But that doesn't get rid of all our space. So what I'm going to do, if you see a line that says dot, dot, dot at the end of it, that means there's more options. So if we click where it says line spacing options, we have even more choices now. All right, let's take a peek here. Our alignment is left. That means that all of our text is going to line up on the left-hand side of the page, which is perfect. That's very standard. Indentation, 0, good, because we don't want to start automatically indented. Spacing before, 0, perfect. We don't want any extra spaces. After, 8 point. That is a bit much. I'm going to get rid of that completely. If we want to add spaces afterwards, we can add it ourselves. Now, line spacing multiple. It's at 1.08. We're going to go ahead and make it just single for now. And that's something that we can always come back and change later if we want to. But for now, we just want to get all of our information on there. If we need to space it out a little bit more later, we can always come back. When you're happy, when you've got 0 spacing before and after and single line spacing here, go ahead and hit OK. Now we should notice it scrunches up quite a bit, but that's okay. That's what we want to see. So now we've learned how to apply effects to text that we've already typed and we want to make some changes to. If you accidentally type, let's say, oh, I realized I have a lowercase I instead of a capital I in Michigan. If you click right next to it, you'll notice my I beam is now flashing right after that I. I'm going to hit the backspace key to make a capital. I'm just going to hold down Shift. I'm going to hit I. There's my capital I. And that is how we go back to make changes there. Okay. So now that we've got our address in, our name and a mailing address, we are going to work on just getting the rest of the information in that we are going to need for a resume. Now, a standard resume is going to have your name and how to reach you. So we've got our mailing address. We can go ahead and put our email address in there as well. We're going to go ahead and put in a phone number if you have a phone number that you want to use on there. Another category that we are going to include is going to be called a professional summary. I'm going to leave a space there because I'm going to come back and write it in later. Another category is going to be called skills. Leaving a space because we're going to come back and fill that out. We're going to do our work history. Now, if you're just out of school and you maybe don't have a lot of work history, you could do experiences. You could just expand your skills category. It doesn't have to be the same wording for everybody. Leaving a space because we're going to come back and fill that in later. Last one would be education. If you find that you have room left at the end, other categories you can include are awards or maybe certifications. If you have any special certificates, if you have a librarian certificate, definitely put that on there if you're applying for a library job. Now, something to keep in mind, it's always nice if you have time to make a really specialized resume for the job that you're applying for because it's really noticeable. You can really go in and target what you're saying. So now that we've got our ideas for our categories, we're going to go ahead, take some time, fill them out. Professional summary, you're just going to make yourself sound ridiculously good. We're really just going to format it so it fits what we're applying for. You're a highly capable tech professional, fluff it up, make it sound good. Put in your skills, languages you speak, special skills you've picked up in previous jobs. They can be both concrete and abstract. That's pretty important to keep in mind. If you've have managerial experience, include that. So, team management. That's a pretty big one. A lot of people look for that. As well as, speaks 5 languages. I do not. That is not true, but it could be true for you. Fluff it up. Work history experience. So you could say, for now, we'll just say, I work at the Muskegon area district library. It's usually good to start with your most current and work backwards. the important thing is we want to make it look like you've been busy. Maybe you don't have 5 previous jobs, which is totally fine. More than 5 is probably too much. It just gets a little bit busy. 5 is probably the max. Less than 5, totally fine. You know, if you've had one job for 20 years, really fluff it out. You've obviously picked up some skills there. So include your experiences. And we'll come back and work on how we would fluff that up later. You know, education, your highest level. And we'll come back and fill that out later. If you have any awards or certifications, you know, if you have a certification in CPR and you're applying for a school job, that's pretty good. Put it on there. If you're taking online classes right now because you're stuck at home, put it on there. Okay. Okay, so let's say we've got general stuff on there. You know, hopefully you've got more skills than I do. It's just 2. You can make, you know, everyday things sound like amazing skills. You just put some nice fancy words in there. But for now, we've got our gist in there. It doesn't have to be all fluffed out yet because that's what we're going to work on right now. So this is just a list of stuff and it's terrible to look at. So we're going to make it look a little bit nicer now. We've got all of our text, so remember the way that we would edit specific text is you click on the line you want. I'm going to go to my name. We're going to start at the top and work our way down. And then I'm going to click and drag, let go. I have just my name highlighted. Now this is going to be kind of our catch their eye up here at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and come up here, make it a little bit bigger. We'll just click on this little drop down arrow and click through and see if we can find a font that looks good. I don't want to be overwhelming, but I do want it to say, you know, look at me, hey. Alright, so I have Arial 28. I think that's pretty good for now. We can always come back, make it a little bit fancier later if we want to. Now I'm also going to talk about one of these other ribbon menus before we get started. Let's say that you have worked with your own company or maybe you're applying for a job and you want to make your resume stand out a little bit different, a little bit more special. One of the things you can do is you can use this insert tab right here. We're going to go ahead and click over here. Insert, as the name would imply, lets you add special things. So pages, tables, illustrations, text, those are your most popular ones. Obviously, there's a lot more happening here, but for now, we're going to stick with those. We're going to talk about how you would go about adding a picture into your resume. It's not something that you have to do, so by no means feel obligated to do it, but it's a good skill to know. Let's go ahead and under the Insert tab, under the Illustrations command group, we're going to go ahead and click on Online Pictures. If you have a picture on your computer that you know you would like to add, it could be a picture of yourself. You can go ahead and pull up pictures and that will let you search your computer for it. But we're just going to go to Online Pictures, click that. It'll take a second to open up a menu here. And we're going to add in a picture. Now these are all free online pictures. Some of them will have text saying that it is a free online picture and you have a right to use it. So that's just something to keep in mind because they all are common source images. You just have to respect the fact that some people are going to have it watermarked or they're going to have the copyrights on it. So let's actually go ahead and pull up, if I can spell, pull up people, and we'll pretend like it's an office picture. You know, if you have a professional headshot done, this would be a good place to put it on your resume. Again, You do not have to. There we go. There's a business headshot. Okay, this is not me, but we're going to pretend it is. Okay, so we've inserted the picture. It's huge! And look, it's taking up all this extra space. So what we need to do is we need to format the picture. Now you'll notice right now it's got these little dots around the edges. Those are your resize dots. So if you were to click and drag on, say, the bottom middle one, a couple things are going to happen. One, it's smaller. Two, it looks like you got stepped on. That's not good. we don't want to see a squished picture, and that's a pretty big tip off for people who are looking at your pictures. If it looks squished, they're going to think you don't know what you're doing. So to avoid that, we're going to undo this little arrow up here in the corner is undo your resize, or a shortcut on your keyboard is you can hit Control Z. Undo, it's back to normal. He looks good again. Okay, so if you click and drag on your corner, so any of the dots on any of the corners, what will happen here now, you'll notice he is getting smaller. They're getting smaller. They don't look squished. Okay, that's what I want. Those corner dots maintain what is called your aspect ratio. That means that your height and your width are going to stay the same ratio. So it's going to stay, 1 to 2, regardless of how you resize it. Whereas if I were to grab one of these side buttons and drag it, that's going to change the aspect ratio. So it's going to get narrower. It's not going to affect the height. The height's going to stay the same. So that's how you get the squishy look. People lose their aspect ratio. So I'm going to Control Z to get it back to where it was. Obviously, that's still too big. And you'll notice, even though it's smaller, it's still coming up on top of my name and not next to it. And I kind of want it next to it. So what we're going to do next is we're going to change the formatting. You'll notice up here on our menu ribbon, we actually have a new tab at the end. You'll notice it says Picture Tools, Format. That means we have a picture now that we can work on editing. So there's lots of special effects we can add to it. We're not going to worry about that so much. Hopefully if you have a picture, it already looks how you want. What we're going to worry about is our wrap text. So what this does is it chooses how our text interacts with our object. So in this case, our picture. If we click on this, right now we are wrap text in line with text. We're going to choose tight. You'll notice what happens then. All of my text moved right up next to my picture. That's perfect for what we want to do, for what I want to do. We're going to go ahead and click tight. So now if we look at that, our other options through, top and bottom, that would put your text just on the top and bottom. Behind, now our picture is behind. Now our picture is in front of our text. You can see it kind of sticking out the side there. We're going to stick with tight for now. We can always come back and change it a little bit later if we want to. But let's see. I'm going to continue making him a little bit smaller. Again, my zoom is about 80%, so I'm getting a feel for how big this is going to look when I print it. I'm going to go ahead and zoom it down, zoom it down, zoom it down. Okay. So that's probably about 1.5 inches, which is, that's a decent size. You can get a look at that. It's not so small that it's going to be lost, but it's not so big that it's going to take over this whole resume. Okay. Now what we're going to do here, it looks all right. I like circles better though. So let's say you've got a part of your picture, you've got it to the size you want, and you decide, well, actually, you know what? I can see, my neighbor's dog in the corner, and I don't want that. In our Picture Tools Format tab, in our menu ribbon, all the way on the far right-hand side, there's a tool called Crop. Crop is like cutting down areas. If you just click right on the picture, not on the little down arrow, right on the picture, you'll see we get these big, thick black bars. Clicking and dragging on one of those is going to make our image a little bit smaller. It's going to change exactly how it looks. When we're happy, if we click on the crop picture again, you'll notice, oh, now our picture got a little bit smaller. Okay, that's a little bit more what I want, but I actually like circles a little bit better. So we're actually going to go and click now on the little crop arrow. If we click on that, we're going to click crop to shape. Hovering over that will open this big, big menu of all of these shapes we can choose. I'm going to pick a circle. Oh, look at that. That's nice. I like that much better. It's personal preference. I like circles. We'll put that on there. Now I've got a nice little circle. It goes with my name. So now when I come in for my interview, people are going to say, oh, you must be Jackie. Yes, you are correct because I included a picture. Okay, we are going to pause it there. Pick back up with us in the Introduction to Microsoft Word Part 2. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Also feel free to visit our website. It's www.madl.org. There is also a contact page there, and you can reach out and contact us from there. Remember, the Muskegon Area District Library helps serve the community with our 10 local branches, and you can access all of our digital resources 24/7 by visiting madl.org. See you next time.